my friends, we've just boxed up this guy and are on our way to sending it back. That was the MXR micro amp that didn't work. And now we're going to open a little bit of mail. Let's see what we got here. Whatever we have in these two packages, I assure you there's something more exciting to come. Oh, feet. Nice. Nice. These are perfectly appropriate. 3M feet. I don't know if I have anything that, yeah, right here. These are not quite the right feet for that. But I have some others coming. And I think that they are quite the right feet for something else. So we're just gonna set that aside. It can chill over there. Feet, we'll put them over here. Good to have them. All right, this guy. I don't know what this is. I don't know at all what it is. Is it battery clips? I don't know. Is it a dog bone? I'm not sure. It just says eBay. Could be anything. Okay. Oh, all right. These are vintage Stackpole pots. Yeah, these are cool. These are from 1974, I believe. Let's see. Yep, there you go. 304 Stackpole, 7/4/1974, 1/5, 15th week of 1974. These are 100K trimmer pots that you would use, say, for a bias on an amplifier, perhaps. They have these pins that go right into a circuit board and these little mounting tabs. Or you can put a shaft in there because these have that universal Stackpole adjustment style. So you could get to it from either side with a screwdriver, as you might in a Fender amp, like a blackface Fender amp. Or you can put a shaft in it and use them as a pot. Or you can pull the wafer out and put them in something else. Lots of uses for those. Not that exciting, right? This one should be. I think I know what this guy is. I'm getting a notification now that my buddy Tanner at Yatesy Guitars just posted a video regarding some kind of adding a bias pot to a Fender amp. Yeah, if you're watching Tanner's channel right now, then I have just the trimmer pot that you need, Tanner. He's probably using the little modern one. Okay, what do you think this is? I don't know. It could be a lot of things. I wonder if we could use some of these feet that we just found. You never know. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Look at that, what we have right there. We've got a box to return that MXR micro amp in. Oh, and free with the box, we've got a version 1 electric Mistress. How do you know what's a version 1, James? Well, I've seen the inside, but also the fact that there's no hash marks, target lines, I don't know what you call them, around these. Okay, here, look. Let me explain using this deluxe memory right here. See the little red radial lines in that circle? Those were lacking in the first versions of the electric Mistress. So that's one way I know. Also, I've seen the inside of it. Now, look at those feet. Oh, it's missing one. Oh, it's actually missing two. That's just a shadow of a foot. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Isn't it amazing when you buy things in the mail and they come in just like that? Now, they're not exactly perfect, but this is only, I ordered multiple kinds of feet. Like, you know, all basically similar, but some of them are a little more rounded, some of them are more square. For just that purpose. I also ordered some big square ones for this. Look, you might notice I got all that nasty off. A little bit of naphtha. Came off so nice and clean too. And look at that paper. serial tag there. Now, if you remember this had Velcro over the whole thing, including that paper. Look, can you get a good look at that? Paper serial number. And it came off that clean. It's the same pedal. Isn't that amazing? I'm so happy about that. Okay. We've had a rule here. The rule's been you got to open it before you listen to it. I still hold true to that rule on AC powered pedals, but I've had to revise it on battery powered ones because of, well, similar to what happened to that mic ramp, although in the case of that one, you have to open it up to put the batteries in, as you do this one. Now with battery powered pedals, now that I'm doing more of those, I've changed my rule a little bit to be those get tested first. So before we do a full inspection of the battery powered stuff, we're going to test it after we do the unboxing, so that should there be a problem with it, a seller or a selling platform, should it get to that point, or a credit card company, if we get to that point, would not side against me and say, you opened it up and monkeyed around with it. How do we know you didn't break it? And that's a fair question to somebody who's watching and is not a technical person and is not familiar with this stuff. They might not know that what I'm doing is entirely necessary and desirable. Sounds like it needs batteries. Okay. That we can't help. Got to open it up for that. So, all right. Hang the guitar back up. Alrighty. Okay. Get the perfect screwdriver. I've never had an electric Mistress before. Not in the pedal format. I'm not even sure what that means. It sounds like something I might have done once in life. I've got a deluxe electric Mistress. Okay, here we go. Well, look at that. Right off the bat, we know it doesn't work because that's not in place. So, interesting. Let's see. Where's the other one connect? Right there. Must have been on that. I think this is one of those pedals that runs off of 1 or 2 9-volt batteries. Oh, by the way, yeah, so let's explore the circuit board. Well, we've got it out here. You can see the EH5200-1 there in the solder in the corner. Can you see that? I can see that. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. It's this kind of minty green color with the wobbly lines and the 2 trim pots. I think there was a piece of foam here to hold the batteries, which now seems to be gone. And you probably can't see that very well, but there's a Redicon Bucket Brigade device in there. Of course, some other stuff too. Look at this. That is nearly touching. Oh, they're supposed to be touching. They go into the same contact. Okay. Nothing to worry about there. Okay. This guy needs to be touched up. We're gonna need some of these. So we'll get those out there. Okay. Let's try it with one. I think it's 1 or 2 9-volt batteries is the deal with these, but I don't know if it has to be one of the 9 volts, like this one or both, or if it could be either one or both. So let's find out. And of course, if something wants 1 or 2 batteries, I can hardly think of a time when I would only want 1 in it. You know, there's a story about a device that takes 1 or 2 batteries. I wonder if it just needs a little contact there. 9-volt batteries, which is what got me into tinkering with guitars. It was my first guitar project. Let me get this on here first and try this. I hear it flanging. Okay, so that's what it wants. It wants to go on there. Let me tell my story while I solder that on. So my first electric guitar came from Toys R Us. I had had a classical guitar before that, and I had a ukulele, and I think maybe a steel string even. No, maybe it was just a classical that I had steel strings on it. God, a store did that. Not my fault. I didn't know better. I was young. All right. So the first electric guitar I had came from Toys R Us. Sonic something? I forget. I've seen them on Reverb occasionally. Might buy one day. Had a little amplifier and speaker built into it. So on the upper bout where you'd have that cutaway where your arm is on a Strat, not the belly cut, the upper bout, or whatever you'd call that. The part that cuts into your arm on a telly, your forearm, on your right hand. That, sorry, that had a speaker in it. Little, I don't know, 5-inch speaker, 4.5-inch speaker. I can do better than this. Okay. And thank you. Sorry. I'm trying to talk and think and tell stories at the same time is something I'm not always good at. The guitar had a cutout in the back for 2 9-volt batteries, and there were some active electronics and a small little amp that powered that speaker in the control cavity. And you could put in 1 9-volt battery and it worked, or you could put in 2 9-volt batteries and it worked better. So, what did I think? If 9 volts is good and 18 volts is better, how's 27 volts? And it worked. I mean, you know, I got some wires and kind of held it in there for a second, and yes, it was louder and clearer. It may not have lasted long like that, but it did work. It worked. And I was quite proud of myself for that. Even though I only tested it briefly. And I set it back down and went about my day or whatever. And then, as the night went on, laying in bed, you start thinking, 9 volts is good. 18 volts is better. And 27 volts is better still. I had this brilliant idea. What would 120 volts do? Because I knew that was coming out of the wall. Now, bear with me here. There's no internet back then. I'm not even a teenager. I'm just a young lad. These are reasonable thoughts. Well, I knew AC and DC were different. And I even knew that all this monkeying around with the thing, there was a chance I could break it. Well, I got an extension cord, stuck a couple little jumper wires in the receptacle end of it. Probably did not solder them, probably twisted them and then wrapped electrical tape around them. I did have a soldering iron at this point. I wasn't skilled with it or anything, but my grandfather, an electrical engineer in the Navy, taught me to solder at a fairly young age. I just need a better knife for doing the thing I'm doing. Hang tight. There it is. That's what I was looking for. Anyway, so I got that thing all ready to go, and I set it down on the ground near the wall outlet, not too near it, you know, and in such a way that I wasn't touching anything. I was foolish, but I wasn't a dumbass. And I plugged that extension cord into the wall. And man, it sounded so good. No, I'm just kidding. It snapped and popped, and a little puff of smoke went up, and that thing was fried in an instant. So that guitar sat not working for a very long time, maybe a year. And over that year, you know, I tried doing different stuff. I looked at it. There's a little circuit board that might as well have looked just like that. I don't know if it had transistors, like discrete transistors, or it had op amps. Certainly one of the two. And I don't remember. I don't think I'm doing a very good job at this. It probably had a couple dozen components though. And I might have been able to identify, you know, what's a resistor, what's a capacitor. I may even have known, no, I didn't know what an op amp was at that point, because I remember when I found out. It was in the back of a book that ultimately solved this problem for me, that I learned what an op amp was. So there we go. That's all I was trying to do. So it sat, and I tinkered with it now and then, tried to make it work. And it was just like, you know, it was so above my understanding. And again, no internet. I got all the books at the library on electric guitars that there were, because that's the resource we had back then. And there really wasn't, I mean, you know, there were some, but there really wasn't any information on how they work, how to fix the electronics in them. You know, it was kind of like the history of the electric guitar. Or maybe, yeah, basically. Or, you know, how to play. There's some instructional books. And one day, probably a year later, well, at a bookstore in the mall, my grandmother's like, you know, ready to buy me a gift. And I found a book that was the Electric Guitar Handbook. And in that book, it had not just the schematics that had the symbols for the parts, but it actually had a drawing of, you know, you see them all the time on the internet now for like 50s mark stuff. Like, here's a pot and the 3 lugs on it. It's a round thing with the 3 lugs coming off. Here's a capacitor that's like a little disc with the 2 legs coming off, and it's orange. So you like could really know what it was. And the wire goes from this lug and it's drawn going here. Not just lines and squares and symbols for things like most schematics, which I might have even seen. I might have seen one. I don't know if I had or not. Probably not. For a guitar. And at that point I was like, hey, I can do this. It's working. And so I was able to hook up one of the pickups through a volume control to the jack. I didn't even get at that point you could just hook the pickup right to the jack and it would work. So I hooked it up through the volume control because it had the pots and it had capacitors and stuff. There was just on a circuit board with other stuff. And I was able to get the pots off and see the 3 lugs and wire it up like that diagram. Ooh, that's loose. Whoa. And then, once I had that working, I thought, okay, I know how a switch works. There's 3 lugs, you know, and this one chooses if it's going to be connected to either this one or that one when you move the switch. And this was a 2 single coil guitar, kind of like Strat pickups. And I was able to get the switch working. So now I had the volume control connected to the switch with 2 pickups on it, and then to the jack. And I kept looking at that book and reading that book. And then, you know, I was probably looking at a diagram for maybe it was a Fender Strat even. And you see where that tone pot is just a capacitor on the pot. And it's just sitting on the circuit. It's basically like, you know, the 2 lugs of the pot with the cap on it are just laying on top of the jack. The 2 lugs of the jack, basically the guitar cord. And I thought, well, I can put it on there and see what happens. It's just touching it to it. And it worked. And then I had that guitar that had a little built-in amplifier. The amp part was damaged, the speaker was damaged, but I had that guitar working again, where I could connect either pickup via a switch through the volume pot and through the tone pot to the jack and plug it into an amp. I didn't actually have a proper guitar amp at that point yet. I was connecting into a cassette player, like a boombox. So back in the day, you had these adapters that were like, it looked like a cassette tape, but it had a 3.5 millimeter stereo plug coming off of it, an 1/8 inch headphone jack coming off it. And you would connect that to, say, your CD player, your Discman in the car, and then plug the little fake stereo cassette into into your car's tape player. And you could play your CD player, your Discman, which was like a portable CD player, probably the size of this or bigger, through what it was a fake tape head that butted up against the real tape head. This one had coils and produced a signal, and this one picked them up. And that's how I plugged in anything that wasn't, you know, a tape receiver. If I wanted to listen to anything, that's how I plugged it in. I connected it to my boombox through that. And I was able to connect the guitar through that.